Welcome to the Squad Games Podcast. Squad Games Podcast.
Remember, at any point, they can snap your wiener off, so be careful.
Absolutely.
You must approach them with snacks and with your hands out so they know where they are at all times. Like,
Always snacks. I definitely feel like it's more of a men-dominated game because there's just not very many of us women. But I mean, I feel it less in Kill Team than I did in Warhammer 40K.
Yeah, don't get me. Warhammer to me is even I, like, I'm not saying like even I, but you know, I've never felt intimidated.
I think I've only met one woman in 40K. I mean,
I
we'll
have
talk about
never
that.
met another woman in 40K.
I want to take my first steps into like 10th edition. Like I was like, oh, I think I might like, you know, make the leap over. But it's interesting because it's like, I've never really felt reserved about being a woman in a male dominated space. It's never bothered me, but mostly because I think I've always had very male dominated like jobs. You know, most of my coworkers have always been like dudes. So it's not, I don't feel uncomfortable.
Right.
Of course you're going to face, you know, a lot of things, you know, I'm not going to say like problems or anything like that, but I mean, of course, in every space you are always going to face being a woman in it's not a male space, but just a male dominated space. And,
yeah. It's where there's more men in general.
Yeah. I mean, the best part of the whole process is that I never have to wait in line to go to the bathroom at any event. Like that is
always the best part. Yep.
And it's always fun to like walk past the line of dudes just to be like, hey.
Right.
Yeah. So, before we dive too far in, everyone, our guests today are Nicole
Hi.
from Kel Team and Saya from Squad Games, and then also our lovely co-host, Mr. Giacomo. Before we dive into the heart of this episode, I really wanted to give a couple shout outs to some things that I really enjoyed this past week. I really enjoyed Rebel Moon 2, which was a movie that I finished up last night from Zack Snyder. It definitely Snyderfied a lot of things, if that's a word. If it's not, it is now. He kind of has some like tropes that he does in every single movie. But the second one came out, and it's very Warhammer 40K / Dune centric. They have like a lot of splash over. It's really weird. But I enjoyed it because it felt like I was watching a female-led 40K movie. Yeah, it was very entertaining and very good. Both of them. And then also X-Men 97.
Yo.
Shit was dope.
Yeah, right?
I've been watching that as well. Big fan.
Nice. I'll have to watch that one.
Please do.
Yeah.
It's on Disney Plus if you don't have it.
Yeah.
I do.
And Rebel Moon's on Netflix.
On Netflix.
Is there anything that you guys really enjoyed this past week that you want to talk about real quick?
I haven't honestly had time to enjoy anything with selling my house, but
Congrats.
definitely hope to soon.
I mean, that is always a good thing. It's a big move, you know?
Oh yeah, I just hope it sells fast.
Yeah. Have you guys finished your repairs?
Yeah, our house is actually officially listed as of Wednesday, and today there is an open house.
Wow.
Very nice.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
That's super exciting. So if we hear your realtor in the background.
Oh, no, I'm not
ignore
there.
her.
I left my realtor to do his thing out there.
That's fair. Sai, is there anything that you really enjoyed this week?
I got invited to a trivia night, and I've never done anything like that before. And it was out of like 30 teams, and we took second place, and we were pretty bummed that we didn't get first. But like, I was actually just floored. It's also really hilarious because they're very random questions and really weird categories, but it always like amuses me how people remember certain things and like how like it triggers memories. And one of the questions was like trying to think of like which celebrities were actually born in California. And the only reason why I remembered why one was is because I was watching a forensic science episode about like this murdered actress and like why one got the super role. And I was like, yeah, she got it because she was local. And I was like, how weird is it that like that was what triggered my memory? But everybody's like that. Like all the questions, like the people could remember certain things just because it was like, yeah, this one time in 6th grade when I was being bullied, I remember looking up at the state flag and seeing a bear. I was like, all right, well, it's a brown bear. Let's write that down. like it was just it was a funny experience, but it was super fun. I've never done anything like that before. And yeah, it was just a very interesting experience.
Amazing.
That's cool.
How about you, G?
Sounds
Anything?
This week,
Yeah, this week.
I'm looking forward to the Nightmare release. And I'm going to say this now. My release is not coming out the 20th, but the next week.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah? Did you not get enough?
The place I went to, which, Loaded Dice, awesome people.
Mhm.
Anthony's a great guy. He reached out to me and said the allotment amount that we got for our store, you're literally the one right after. So we have the next one coming in, and that's where yours is, which is fine. I'm not in any rush to finish it. So
I think they had 9 allotted.
9 allotment, exactly. I was number 10, which is okay. And, Anthony reached out and said like, "Hey man, I'm sorry. No worries. You know what? I wasn't going to build them right away anyways. I barely finished my Votan as it is. So I'm still looking forward to Nightmare. That's pretty cool. I'm looking forward to watching the rest of Shogun on Hulu. That's a fun show so far. If you like the drama shows,
I've heard it's great.
and that's I saw Civil War again in IMAX so that I could blow up my ears. And that was fun. Yeah, that was fun to look forward to this week.
I want the
Amazing.
Nightmare box too, but I have like FOMO so bad, but at the same time I have to like make a realistic, like I have to check myself because I'm like, girl, you have piles of stuff you need to get through. It's okay. You're not going to get it when it comes out. Like
It's
chill.
It's a-okay.
It's
Mhm.
okay. You'll get to it when you get to it. And I don't like that, but I have to accept it.
So, one more stopping point before we move on. I want to talk about the Pacific Skirmish because there was a lot of controversy this past week over it. Like we released the whole YouTube video and all that kind of stuff. I mean, not YouTube. We did do that. But the podcast. But it turns out that there was at the top tables after we recorded, there was some controversy and some misplayed rules in both games. And I just wanted to touch on those real quick. And the TOs listening and the players listening to learn from some of the stuff that we did. So if you go back and you look at Pacific Skirmish, nothing is the way that it was when we talked about this. In fact, the top 7 scores changed. It turns out one player, super class act about the whole thing, ended up playing Reign of Tears incorrectly and fell back when the model was not an active operative. And that would have changed a few outcomes of the game. And they decided after talking about it that they would tie. So this leaves 2 ties at the end. But unfortunately, in the other game, there shouldn't have been a tie. If anyone knows, there's Eliminate Guard. Eliminate Guard is not optional. Once it's revealed, there has to be selected at the end of the target reveal step. There is no may, there is no forget. And if you forget and you're about 4 activations in, call it TO over and they'll assign one. Or if all models have died on points already, they can assign one who's already dead. It's very important to remember that because when you look at the card, there is no may, there is no nothing. And this would have led to a change in that game as well. So, finding all this within 24 hours after the event ended, we were able to go through and talk with all the players and make sure everything was resolved correctly and everything was updated on Wednesday. I think it's important for TOs not to be afraid to go back and make changes to events if rules were misplayed, because you can't have somebody who misplayed a rule, and affect a game in a certain way. Obviously, a place like LVO or something like that, like awards are already given out, things happen. If things aren't caught in the moment, things can still be corrected afterwards. This might be the first Kill Team event in the US that has had to go back and retroactively change scores. after a lot of things were brought to light afterwards. But in the end, as a TO, it's really important to maintain your integrity and make sure that your feelings don't matter. The players' feelings don't matter. What matters is the ultimate outcome of what the game is supposed to be. So, there's a little bit of drama, but every player was really good about it. Every player really took it on the chin. And after they came back with the overall of what happened, I went out and handed out yellow cards, which was -2 to certain players for that ended up misplaying rules. So after they were resolved, the judge stepped in and then resolved it how it should be resolved. And then ultimately what you see now at the Pacific Skirmish is we see Jonathan Marquis won the event with Compendium Guard.
So crazy.
Yeah. And then we had Casey take second place with Hand of the Archon. And in third place, we have Austin with Scouts. And in fourth place, we have Kellen with Warp Coven. And in fifth place, we have Chris Baki. And in sixth place, we have Alex Squires with Blades of Cain. And Chris Baki also had Blades of Cain. So Blades of Cain took fifth and sixth, which is still really impressive.
Very.
And in seventh, we have Anthony with Wormblade. So it's very important to maintain competitive integrity between tournaments and make sure that, things are really, to me, that's the most important thing, is to make sure things shake out correctly. Nicole, you were there and you were playing Harlequins.
I was.
How did that feel? How did the new team feel?
Honestly, like garbage. I really had hope for them, and I thought that the nerf wasn't going to be that bad until I actually played them in a tournament and realized how rough it is now. Without any really long range weapons besides one, they don't really have much of a chance with the hindrance to their movement.
That's unfortunate.
I definitely saw you struggling on some of the maps.
As the diagonal deployment especially was rough. The 2 games I lost were both on diagonal deployment.
That is very unfortunate. That is not a. I think with them having, like you said, I think you said at the tournament, them having such short ranged guns and then really difficult to kind of make their way through terrain now. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, but did dropping 2 inches really affect you poorly?
Yeah, it definitely does. It makes the movement so much harder. And especially, with only 6-inch guns at maximum besides the Death Jester, there's really not a lot you can do.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just getting shot off the board nonstop.
That is unfortunate.
That is very unfortunate.
Did you pop domino field a lot, or did it just not matter?
I did, but I feel like by the time I was close enough, like they could get, especially on diagonal deployment, they were able to get within the 6 inches often enough that it wasn't really mattering.
That's unfortunate.
Like my 2 losses were against Jonathan Marquis, and he was just shooting me off the board left and right. And then my last game against Anthony with Wormblade, and same thing was happening. It was just not having the movement was making it so hard. I couldn't shoot anything. I couldn't get into charge range early enough that it just wasn't working out.
Who were the other 2 players that you played at the event? Because Jonathan, those were both of those teams placed in the top 8. Jonathan Marquis got first, and then Anthony in 7th. Who else did you end up playing?
I played Ezekiel Kelly and Malachi Kelly.
Hey, look at that.
Yeah, there's some Kel team violence on
right there. Oh, yeah. And me and Malachi were both playing Void Dancers, so
that was a bloodbath, right?
It was. I had 1 model alive at the end, and he had none. And that was at the end of Turning Point 3.
Wow.
It was definitely bloody.
Yeah. And you have a beautifully painted team.
Thank you. I'm really disappointed that they nerfed them so hard after I just got them painted. But I'm looking forward to the mandrakes, and I hope that they'll be good.
I like to think they will be.
They seem pretty correct.
I really hope so. Aside from on Beta Decima, which I hope I just don't see very much of, I hope they'll be good.
Yeah, Beta Decima is Giacomo, you had your first experience on Beta Decima, my guy.
Yeah, it's there's some obvious problems when we were playing.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely understand why people say it's bad, but I see ways to improve it already.
Uh-huh.
And that's what I'm trying to look forward to. I'm looking for the silver linings, you know?
You're always a positive person, though.
Got to try to be, right?
I haven't played it yet, but I was like looking through it, and I was like, "Oh, this seems interesting." I like the look of it. I think I stand alone with that, but I just was like people who build terrain. I'm like, this could have a really cool impact instead of being like over water. It could always be over like open space, and so like I got excited about the layouts, but I haven't played it yet.
Yeah, it's a fun concept, but I don't think it was executed the best.
Definitely not.
I mean, they tried to make a really shitty terrain set with a less amount of terrain, too little terrain, and try to make it good.
Right.
What I've said multiple times is Beta Decima to me is just Box City, if anyone gets that reference, but with invisible boxes, because the way they changed the rules is like all of the gantries are supposed to go all the way down. So it's literally just like a bunch of containers, and people really disliked the container meta when Kill Team this edition first came out. And it's so interesting to see everyone like, oh, GW released it, and now we're just going to go back to this container meta. Oh my goodness. Oh, we're so excited. It's like, guys, they literally hated this when in fact, people like rioted against how Kill Team, the first LVO of this edition happened. They absolutely despised it. And now they're like, hey, now you can't step on the floor and containers are back, but they're invisible.
See, I actually don't dislike that I can't step on certain parts of the floor. Like, because, if there's the two sides, there's the one that has the middle piece and the ones without it, right? My issue is the lack of visibility, right? You just lose all the visibility, which is just I don't like that kind of rule. I get what they're trying to go for, but it's like I could just put up a wall and do the same thing. I don't know. I didn't like that part of it, but I don't totally mind the rim and you have to play on the gantries. That's not the worst thing.
I think the hard thing about Beta Decima is that everyone is so used to playing true line of sight and true this and true that, and this one is like that doesn't exist anymore. Like that core part that we've been playing with for 2 years. Let's just pretend like it doesn't exist. And I think that is the part that's like so difficult to wrap our heads around.
Exactly. Because you could be out in the open. In fact, this happened when I was playing is my opponents would be positioning thinking they could shoot one of my guys, but they can't because they can't shoot through this thing, this ephemeral wall that exists.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It just feels bad.
It's definitely interesting because we still on the Squad Games Discord get people saying like, hey, we really want to make Beta Decima work or like this or that. But it's like if you're going to run a Beta Decima tournament, it's fine if you run a full Beta Decima tournament because ultimately it has the same problems that the old Into the Dark has, where it's actually just bad in general. There are certain maps that most teams can only score 2 or 1 VP at the beginning of the game. And there are only some teams that can get 3. And then on certain maps, some teams can get 3 and some teams can get 3. So now you're like going to a tournament that depends on points. I mean, I guess if you go just strength of schedule, but then, or opponent win percentage, but then you still run into the same thing of people drop and yada, yada, yada. And opponent win percentage is worse for less rounds. So it just,
that's a different mess.
Yeah. It's a pain in the ass. So moving on to the main discussion is women in wargaming. How now, Nicole,
is this brought on because of the female custode announcement?
Of course, we'll get to that. So Nicole, you've been playing for quite some time. You've been playing Warhammer as well. How long have you been playing war games?
I would say about 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah, but Nicole, you also play a lot of just competitive games in general, don't you?
I do a bit. I play, we play old school Magic now. We used to play modern,
Mhm.
and I also play Disney's Lorcana card game
Mhm.
Ooh, nice.
competitively. But aside from card games, Kill Team's the only tabletop game I currently play.
So when you first got introduced, what did you first start playing?
I started with card games, and that was Pokemon originally.
Mm-hmm.
Hell yeah.
And then not long after that, we got into Warhammer 40K, and I started with a Necrons team.
Okay.
And they didn't really work for me. I wasn't a big fan of them at the time. They weren't very good. And so
you
I ended up
started in
switching.
early 9th?
No, this was 8th.
8th?
Ooh, okay.
Yes. And then I switched off to Tyranids, and I actually really enjoyed them. But in general, I wasn't a huge fan of just the big, long rounds of 40K.
Mm-hmm.
And I would get bored between, waiting for your opponent to take their entire turn of their entire 2,000 points before you even get to do anything. And just in general, I wasn't a big fan of the 40K environment. And it's definitely more of like a boys' club, I feel, than Kill Team is. I mean, Kill Team is still predominantly men, but I feel like the men that play Kill Team are a lot more welcoming than 40K players.
Interesting.
I think I've only seen one other female play 40K, and I think, well, I mean, that might be wrong, but one that comes to mind, Giacomo,
I've never seen any.
Aaron Nafla, right? He has somebody.
Yes, on team Lightly Salted or Salted Lightly, one of the two Utah teams.
Yeah, she plays, and
Mm-hmm.
we would see her at these team events that we would go to. Never got the pleasure to play her, but
She's a great opponent. She's wonderful. Very, very class act.
yeah, I think you played her, right? Did you lose?
No, I think we
did you win?
tied. I was playing against
Tied?
sisters.
Amazing. And I think that there's like, Saya originally started a long time ago with D&D.
Oh yeah,
And
I
then-
think I've played. I think I'm approaching. Well, I don't want to age myself. I've played D&D at least over a decade. So that's what I'm gonna claim. But I play a lot of games, but I mean, I'm a huge into like competitive board games as well. I love board games, but I mean D&D, and I got into Kill Team because of Dakotha. Like we really tried to
in 2020.
Yeah, 2020. But I do remember, wargaming's always been I've always been interested in it, but I remember we always try to do things to stay connected, and we just try to enjoy each other's hobbies is what we like to do, because we like to, spend time together. But I remember him, I think, playing one game of Kill Team, and then you're like, "Hey, babe, I signed us up for LVO," and I was so upset with you. I was so upset with you.
It was like 4 or 5.
I had the same exact experience with Kill Team.
Yeah, but it's just like, I bought you all the models, so please feel guilted into playing with me now. Like, I was like, oh my gosh. But I mean, I had to paint I remember, because it's like I was 3 games, and then I think I had a total of like 7 actual games, all with just
7.
Yeah, all with just Dakotha going into LVO. But I painted my 1,000 Suns, and I painted my little Kill Team, and that was an experience. My brain physically hurt after 3 days of playing Kill Team.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely does.
Yeah, I mean, even now that's tough to do 3 solid days, but
yeah,
so I mean, I was into Kill Team 1 and now played Kill Team 2nd edition, and I'm hopefully moving into Warhammer, but it does give you some pause to take a step out into Big Hammer as a woman. Like, you don't want to say it does, but I don't know. I think Kill Team has always been very welcoming and open and fun, and you see a lot of like girlfriends and wives and fiancés there, and even if they're not playing, they're still like wanting to be involved or asking questions, and and it's always been a very welcoming, and I've actually seen more women in Kill Team than any other tabletop game so far. Not including D&D. D&D, I swear to God, D&D was made for women. I don't care what you say, I'll fight you to death for that. But like, you always see more women in Kill Team than anywhere else.
So my first experience, I would say that I think that female players are becoming more and more popular in both systems.
Yeah.
Especially after TOing over the past 2 years, right? Seeing
Right.
a nice increase, something that we all love to see, that and children, right? That's the reason, we want to be inclusive to everyone. And my first experience was actually getting into Kill Team was, there's a woman who owned a game store. Her name was Carol. Her and her husband owned a game store, and she's the one who actually introduced me to Warhammer. She had a Eldar army and a Black Templar army. And when I had my very first 10-year-old birthday there, 10th birthday there, invited a bunch of 5th graders to come over and play with all of their models on like a really big game that we just played all day. And got to use a lot of her models on that day. So I think women have been very important for this, and something that's been like, she introduced me to this hobby. And I think that that's like something that will always stay with me, and something that's like super important. And I wish I could tell her to this day, like, thank you. She really helped me, not only in my grades, but everything else. I owe a lot to Carol. So,
Yeah.
so I think that that's really important to realize. And now, I think Saya's very first negative experience came from LVO.
Oh yeah.
And
Oh wow.
from that LVO. And unfortunately, like the TOs, I took what happened to Saya and how she felt.
Yeah, but what happened to me was so ridiculous. Like, it was so freaking ridiculous.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I did what I did at Pacific Skirmish, because I never want to have a player. We still talk about what happened.
Oh, and I remember telling you, Dakotha, I was like, I don't want to say anything because I don't want them to think that, I'm just being a girl. And I remember thinking that too. Like, I don't think I should complain. I don't think I should say something because this.
Why don't you tell us, everyone, what happened?
Oh, so all of the experiences, even experiences, like I see some of these players still to this day, like years later, and like we're all pretty positive, even ones where I got my ass whooped. But I think it was my 5th or 6th game. It was definitely day 2. And some guy, I was pulling, I'm a really competitive player, but to the point where it's like, it's my fault. Like, I shouldn't be that competitive. I really like to win, as we all do. But I used to, this is back in 1st edition where you could do some really, really shitty things. So what I did is that there was a secondary you could take where you would try to just kill
Bounty Hunter.
Yeah, bounty hunter, where you would just want to kill off their elites, like, so you'd want to kill off their
specialists.
Their specialists, their captain, the spotter, whatever you need, because that's back when you would like name all of them. You'd choose who your leader was, who your veteran was. That's back, like, that was
Your
1st
comms,
edition.
your gunner.
Yeah, and so I knew when I was playing, and I played Thousand Suns, so I had Zangor, I had my my Psyker, I had actual
Terminator.
Marines, so I had quite a large team. So I knew when I was playing specialist teams, so when I was only going to be going against 5 or 6 other models, they were going to choose that because they hit hard. And so I would purposely, it was a mind game, but I would purposely not choose anything, because technically in the rules it said you only had to have a leader. So I was like, boom, not choosing shit, dude. Like, I'm not going to take any buffs from having a comms, a veteran, nothing, because I know I'm going to like prevent you from like scoring that secondary. Was that wrong of me? I don't know. It was not classy of me, for sure, but but it was always a way of like ensuring that these people are going to be out like 3 secondary points. And yes, I can look back now and I was like, it's pretty scummy. And I would not do that now, because
I think it's very viable. I mean, if somebody's going to predict. But Wargaming was one of the few teams back then that you could get away with.
I know, but it's it's such a slimy thing to do. But like, here's the thing: the person I am now, especially because like as a TO and a female TO in Kill Team, I have to like present myself better, and so I wouldn't do it now. But it was such a slimy ass thing to do, and I loved it because I'd usually win. But I played against this guy, and at the very beginning of the games. And again, this is from a lack of experience too, because I remember I said I'd only think I had like maybe 7 games underneath me before I went to LVO. And what I did is I had a list of rules of like what I was supposed to do. Like, I knew that, like, I sat down, I introduced my characters, and then you name off like I know that like you were supposed to say certain secondaries you would announce ahead of time, and then like others as you know, like whatever the rules are with your secondaries. And
secondaries were all secretly chosen.
yeah, that's what it was.
And
Okay, sorry. This
revealed
was like
when they
years
were
ago. That's
revealed
what it
when
was.
they were scored.
When they were scored, and that is the biggest thing, because I remember there was like some hiccup with first edition, and that's what it was, is that they were all secret, and then as you scored them, you were at the end of the round, you were supposed to be like, oh, and I got this point, here's my card, this is what I wrote down. And what had happened was that like after so we got started, like we were like well into round one, and he was like, well, who's your comms person, who's your vet person? I was like, oh, I don't have any. And he looked at me, he was like, oh, and I was like, yeah. Because when we introduced them at the very beginning, I just said, this is my this is my leader. And that's all I announced because that's all I had. So he was like, okay. And then what he did is that he crossed off his I saw him clearly on a piece of paper cross off his secret secondary. And that was it. He just crossed it off. So I thought in my mind, the most he was going to get is 1 point if he kills my leader. But then at the end of the game, he told me he had like, that he hadn't chosen that, and that he had chosen a different one, and that he scored all these extra points, and he beat me by like 1 point. And I was like, no, you didn't. And he was like, what? I was like, you have to announce your secondaries. He's like, oh, I wrote it on the back of my paper, so it wasn't sloppy, so now I can write it on the front. It was just a really weird thing, but he had clearly not done that. He clearly just like tried to find a secondary that fit the narrative of the game so he could score all these extra points. And even if he had done that, he should have announced his points during the game, as was protocol of first edition. Like as you score the points at the end of the turn, you're like, oh, I get 2 points here, this point here, and you write it down, you both agree. But like all of a sudden at the end of the point, and I looked at him and I was flabbergasted at how ridiculous he was. But I was also a very new player, and he was just so forthright that like that was what he was doing. And I told Dakotha, like, because we had like a 15-minute break, I was like, hey, this guy completely like, and I hate using this word, but like, you know how we always say misplayed instead of like you cheated, but like he straight up cheated. And I was really upset about it. And Dakotha's like, you need to go to a TO. And I was like, I don't want to go to a TO because I'll be the woman who is complaining that someone didn't treat her right. And I was like, that's a really sexist way of feeling. But like, you know, when you're playing in male dominated areas, sometimes that's a fear that we have, you know, and I hate admitting that, like, because realistically it was a player to a player. It had nothing to do with being a man and a woman, but that was my feelings at the time, that because I was a woman, I wasn't going to be taken seriously. And I did tell the TO, and the TO basically told me there was nothing he could do about it. And like, and it was really upsetting to me because realistically, as a TO right now, if someone came to me with that blatant, like that blatantly happening, I think that person should score 0 points.
Oh,
I don't
definitely.
think, yeah, absolutely. Because that is so ridiculous. And what really kind of upset me was that I was really upset. And I went into my next game and I played a guy who was so amazing. I don't remember what his name was, but he was a guy from Portland, and he had just played Thousand Suns at a prior tournament. And when I was telling, he's like, why are you so upset? And like, he was very sweet about it. And we got our game done like really soon, because it was just like, we both were just, I don't know, we just flew through that game. And I told him what had happened. And he was like, wait a minute, that happened to me at another tournament. And then he named the player that I had just played. So this guy, this was like his motive. And so again, I told Dakotha, and he's like, oh, you should tell the TO. And I was like, the TO is not doing anything. No, but I mean, just like, I was like, oh, I don't know about that. And I didn't tell the TO because nothing had done. And I didn't want to make it into a bigger option because I didn't want to be like the girl causing problems. But this guy, I think Dakotha did tell for me. And then it turns out that they were watching him, and he pulled the same shit with another player later on. And he got,
and unfortunately, the TOs really only punished him there rather than going back and punishing all of his things, which, you know,
it makes me wonder, did he do that with every single player? Did he try to pull that? Like, but I mean, the fact that but there's a worse part of that story. My very last game, I was playing a Space Wolves guy, loved his models, and he walked up to me, and we were like, I was obviously a very slow player because it was my very first tournament, so I filled those 2 hours to the brim. And he walked up to me, and he was like, oh, are you understanding better now? And I was like, oh my God. I almost like punched him. I was like, oh, like, and I just looked at him. I was like, I don't think I said anything because I was just like, what the fuck, dude? Like,
Wow.
but yeah, so that's how my LVO. But you know, I stuck around. That was the worst things ever happened to me at LVO. I don't want to discourage anybody because he got his in the end. Like he got called out for cheating. So
Good.
Oh, good.
I think that's like really important to like realize is like, I don't think it really matters the gender or anything like that.
no, it
but
doesn't. It doesn't.
when you come up to somebody and you ask them if they're understanding more, you know, it's just
you
like,
understand better? Man, that would infuriate. Like to this day, I don't know how I'd handle someone just being. And here's the thing: I think in his mind, he thought like, I don't know what he was thinking, honestly, because that really just that was like 6 years ago, and I'm still like just repeating that story makes me all mad again. If I ever see you in real life again, dude, it's on. Like,
so I think that's some of the issues that like we run into a lot, right? Is I think that people are trying to be like nice and trying to do like certain things, you know, but like sometimes like it really just doesn't come across that way. And
you're talking about like how they're being a little bit more demeaning than they think they are.
Yeah, because I think that's maybe we've already brought it up. We should probably bring it to that point next. I know that I've gotten complaints from both of you about some players that are, you know, just trying to be nice, but when they're trying to be nice, they ultimately just like heavily insult you because they're treating you differently than they would treat somebody else.
It comes off as condescending for the most part.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with Nicole. And it's like, I've even had other women come up to me at other events that I was a TO at, like saying like, man, like I just didn't enjoy my game. And the thing is that if it's not something you would particularly say, well, I think that the issue is that dudes sometimes think that women are new players, like they don't know what they're doing, and I don't think it's like it's rude, but because they don't see us enough in the game space. Nicole won a tournament, like she's not.
I'm at almost every big tournament.
I know she's at almost every single big tournament, and honestly, you're probably one of the nicest people I've ever met. So like, I can't imagine like you leaving negative, but I think like negative memories in people's minds. And it's funny to me because it's like I still think people approach you like you don't know what you're doing, like, and always like kind of talk to, because I get that too, like when I play games, people like will almost approach things like, do you understand, and just be like, are you kidding me, dude?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I kind of have to chalk it up to the fact that like we're not seen so much, even though
That's
like
true.
Because at LVO you were like one of like, well, how many women competed at LVO? We had a pretty,
I believe 3 that I know of. Like my first round was against Shayla, who is a pretty new player.
Mm-hmm.
But aside from her and Janice, I don't think there was any other women.
I think there was 2 other women. I think it was 5 women total at LVO. Was it not?
We did. We had a couple more.
Yeah, we had 5, and then I had a bunch of women who were circling the narrative table. And they were like, oh, because they were like, oh, this doesn't seem as competitive. I'm like, it shouldn't be. So it should be fun. And so they were like, oh, we're really interested in it. And because I know that they were hoping that we were going to do a like a teaching day. And I was like, those are so hard to do at LVO though. Like, they're just, we were so exhausted.
Yeah, I know there was a girl who won, I think it was a terrain set. And she wasn't playing. Oh, Charlotte was there too. See, I didn't see Charlotte.
And there's a couple others.
Yeah, I feel like it was like,
but I get to meet everyone. So
yeah,
there was a lot of people.
Yeah, but I was like, I remember doing a lot of because I was TO for the narrative event, and then like but I remember like doing a lot of videos and like talking with people, and because I was doing all the social media and photography for the painting, that's where I think I came across a lot of women. I was like, here are the ladies, bring them on. And I swear women always have the best painted teams too. Like I'm always like, yes. But oh yeah, the girl who won the terrain, I think that she was really interested in learning to play. And which is cool, is because I think when she won it, she was with her friend, and then like she was given to by a female player. And I think that having more women in the space approach other women, I always feel so creepy too, because when I come up to like dudes, I'm always like, oh, you have a girlfriend, a wife, anybody? And I'm like, I'm not hitting on you, I just want them to come play.
Right, absolutely. Anytime I hear a guy complaining like, oh, that his wife won't play with him or something, I'm like, have them try it out. See if they're even remotely interested. I didn't originally think I was going to want to play whatsoever. I didn't grow up playing these type of games. And so at first I was like, I don't think I'm going to like that. And now I love it. So
and you're really good at it too. So
I definitely try. I'm trying to improve as much as I can.
Doing a great job, Nicole.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I think, is there any specific things that players have done to you guys to make you feel different or condescended towards, or make you feel different than possibly some of their other opponents? Like specific examples, or people that are dense. I'm pretty dense, so
honestly, I haven't really had any situations where I feel like any different, or like that my opponent is playing or treating me differently because I'm a woman.
Mm-hmm.
I will say I've had people who are like condescending, and I don't know if they mean to be condescending, but I mean I've heard that from male players as well that have played against them. So I don't think it's the fact that I'm a woman.
Okay.
But for the most part in Kill Team, I have not had really any negative opponents that were men that treated me any differently.
It's good. That's fantastic.
Like for the most part, like I do appreciate when people will explain, because I don't know a lot of the other armies fully.
Mm-hmm.
I have a goldfish brain, and so I can't remember everybody's armies and what they do.
There's so many of them too.
There is, and there's so many like sneaky things they can do. So I do always appreciate when my opponent will like explain operatives to me and what they can do and like the sneaky things they can do. But that's about it.
Right, that's good. I'm glad.
Bad experience. The least amount of bad experiences, I hope.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know. I think Kill Team, I honestly want to say, it's like, I know that there's a lot of issues in a lot of wargaming, like male-dominated spaces for women, but I really do think that Kill Team is one of those games that's so kind of, I think it's just because it's such a small knit group of people that we really do get to know each other. And I don't feel like that would be tolerated very well in this group, because we're all separated by one or two players. Like, there's just no way. And if you ever got a reputation for being a jerk or like a sexist piece of crap, that probably would not fare well for you.
No, probably not.
Definitely. Not in the community of
not in this
players
community
that we have.
Absolutely.
I think if anything, and I don't know if it was from being a woman or whether it was more of like when I was a newer player, that people I would play against maybe sometimes would like take advantage of the fact that I don't know as much. And so I'm too nice, and I'm the type of person that I let people take things back way too often. And it's cost me some games. So I've had to learn to be a little more like firm on if I let people take something back. Our Kel team has a rule on that now, on when we can let people take things back, and that's definitely my fault. But I definitely try my best, but I can't, like, people don't do it as much to me now, but when I first started, it was definitely, people would always ask, like, oh, actually, can I take that back? And I was always like, oh, yeah, that's fine, and it would end up costing me a game. Mm-hmm. But I've learned now not to do that.
Something that I've noticed when people play against, I've played against Saya, is especially if they don't know who she is, mm-hmm. They kind of assume that she's like a newer player, and then they either like over explain things, or they have tried to take advantage of newer players, and it's not because she's a woman, it's because like it's more of a newer player thing.
Yeah.
But again, that assumption comes from where? Like, why do you
because
think
we're
that?
women?
I know.
Yeah, like, because I don't feel like they do it to other men.
Yeah, or it's just like, I mean, here's the thing. I don't know if that's why they're doing it. I'm just asking, like, why do you think that is? Like, would you assume, like, I would be a newer player? But I told Dakotha it's really interesting when we go to events, because it's like him and I like to go. I mean, Giacomo as well. We like to go play at other events that are not TO'd by us, because we need to know. I mean, I think last year I didn't play very many games because we were just doing the TO rounds, and I was like, and then I played BAO, and I was like, wow.
Also having a 2-year-old.
Yeah, having he's
definitely
3 now. Yeah, but it's definitely, and then trying to get my YouTube off the ground and stuff like that. So my priorities shifted a little bit for sure. But it was going back into, because I told Dakotha, I was like, I thinking I might want to go back and start playing competitively again. But I was just like, it's interesting because it's like when we go to places that don't know. I hate saying this, but like if they don't know that Dakota's my husband, like I get treated a little bit differently than if they do.
right.
And it's very interesting because it's like, oh, like, do you have someone that you can check if all my information's right with or not? Like that's kind of the feeling I get, and I'm always like, oh man, okay, like
right.
it's fine. I don't ever name drop him though.
Yeah, see, I'm the same way.
Yeah, and I think that sometimes it's important for players to realize how they treat newer players or who they perceive to be newer players.
Well, hopefully we're gonna have a lot of new women coming. Like I
really
want more
hope so.
ladies. Come on, ladies. Like
I actually saw on YouTube recently, and I had never seen this girl's videos, but it was a video that popped up that, like, I guess she normally plays video games, and one of her subscribers sent her a Kill Team box for her to try out.
Ooh.
And I was just like, it would be great to see more women get into it.
Yeah. I want it to be a female only space too. I want it to start being like when men come in, we're like, okay. No, I'm just kidding. Like I really I am kidding. Like I just would love to see, because I actually think that women usually do pretty well in this. Usually women who do choose to stay in it do, they're always at least half, you know what I mean? Like they're winning half their games. So it's, I don't know. And I usually feel like it's only like when we have negative experiences, it's usually like everybody's having a negative experience with that person. It's not just like,
absolutely.
Yeah. It's so, because I mean, generally everybody's a really, really good people. Again, because it's such a small community, and we're all on like Discord with each other. We're all at the same events, and this is also the most catty group of people. Like, my God, do you guys like to gossip? My God.
Oh yeah.
Like we know everything about every player. So like, you're not going to get and that's why I think it's like, but again, like being held accountable is not a bad thing, but like generally speaking, anybody listening to this, if you are a dude with like a wife or a girlfriend, you want to, get into this, like we would love it. Like they'll have a good time.
Absolutely.
And even the women are so welcoming of other women. We're like, yes, please join us. Like,
yeah, we really are.
Yeah, we like it. So
new players in general.
Yep. Yeah, very much so.
Yeah. And I think I've seen people do some of the same things to children, where they've tried to take advantage of children before.
I see that
absolutely.
a lot too.
And now I'm not saying like the competitive scene is completely toxic. I'm saying there's a few people who take advantage of people, right?
It sounds gross when you're like, a few people take advantage of children who don't know any better. And it's funny because some of the children in our group are like winning tournaments. So like, who has a golden ticket? Which one is
Jesh.
Yeah.
Jesh,
is he like 15 or something?
16.
16? Yeah. Don't play that kid. He's going to beat the crap out of you. So, like,
actually, on our team for Harlequins, I actually go to him for advice more than anyone else.
He's just got a good mind for it. He's just so clever.
He really is.
Yeah, he is. It's interesting because I know that, we kind of got stuck in a little bit of a negative experience category. But have you guys had any kind of really positive experiences? Sai's already kind of elaborated on one, really bonding with people. Is there anything that you guys have had that's like really positive?
I've had quite a few positive games. I would say one that really stuck with me, that was probably one of my best play experiences, was LVO 2 years ago, which was my first ever time playing Kill Team. I had one practice game the night before in the hotel room and went into it.
Wow.
And I started out I was 3-0 to start.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think it was my 5th or 6th round opponent who was playing Void Dancers at the time when I was playing Commandos. He was just really friendly, and he knew that I was new as well. And so he took the time to explain, and that was when Domino Field was even more broken. And he went over all of his rules and all of his models and everything with me, and like made sure that I was having an enjoyable game as well. I still ended up losing by 1 point, but even though I lost, it was still the most fun game I had at the whole tournament.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was a great time.
Yeah.
So I don't remember his name, but shout out to the Void Dancer player with the it heads on his Void Dancers.
Oh.
Oh, I know
Yeah, I
who
know
that
that guy from Vegas.
is. From Vegas.
Is he
yeah.
from Vegas?
Mhm.
Yeah. Was he
Mhm.
at the AVTT as
He
well?
was.
He was.
No, it was not. He wasn't there.
I'm wondering if
No?
he. Oh, dude.
At least not the most recent AVTT. It was a different guy.
It was the AVTT before
Before
that.
Yeah,
Nice
because I remember
before that, yeah.
seeing that and they're like slutty little its, and his display was like a weird like manhole. Like I remember stopping to look at his display, and I was like, "This is the most magical thing I've ever seen." It was like party down here, and it was like a weird
They
manhole.
were great.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, "I love this so much."
Yeah, but it was definitely a fun game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's a good dude.
Yeah, he made my first competitive experience much better.
Good.
Because I
That's
had a pretty shitty game right before that. So it definitely boosted me back up to wanting to play. Because at first I was tempted, like, I think I might be done. And then I was like, okay, I'll keep playing.
That's important.
Yeah, it is. It is.
At least it wasn't as bad as fighting against Dolph Lundgren. You don't like to kill Dolph Lundgren.
Okay, yeah, so you want a bad experience? That would be playing against Dakotha and not being able to kill Dolph Lundgren.
Oh, I know.
A normal
It was
trooper
ridiculous.
for 2 tournaments in a row.
It was so dumb that I couldn't kill him ever.
It's
Just
still
never dies.
fantastic to this day. I think the first time you tried to kill him, you shot him 4 times with 4 different orcs. And
I
then
did.
finally killed him. And then the second time, you shot him with a rocket launcher. You weren't able to kill him. You shot him with another guy, got him really low, and then I moved a medic just so that
Yep.
he wouldn't die when you killed
I
him.
was so mad.
I was just playing mind games at that point. I didn't need to
Yep.
put him there, but
No, he's just like, he's going to live. He's
Yeah.
got this.
Yeah, but Giacomo
Yeah.
and I've had a game like that. We were both playing Space Marines, but I think you were playing Phobos. And I remember like our game was really weird, and like we both had like 1 model left, and neither one of them would die. And I think like one had 1 hit point, one had 2, and we just like were making saves. It was just a ridiculous game. Oh yeah, we were sitting next to I think it was Dakotha and Chris Harris, and they were like,
Oh, that was in
they-
Los Angeles. Yeah.
they were like fighting, and then you and I were just like laughing through our game. We're like, yeah, that's not gonna be us. Like, they're like, oh, these are the rules.
That's why we're at this table.
I remember, and the map layout was so garbage too. We're just like running through like smoke fields. Like, I don't know what the fuck is going on right now, but that was a fun game. I
times.
generally think a lot of my good experiences are playing, because this is such a close-knit community. I know it's like we've got thousands and thousands of players, but I always love playing the same player after a year or like a couple months have passed. And I always think that's so much fun to see, like, what's new, like what's going to happen, and just catching up with people. I think it's really, really great, because generally speaking, I think a lot of people in this community are just amazing. So
Definitely. Yeah, it's always good to see like how you've improved when you're playing against someone as well.
yes. And usually people
Like-
like if you've lost the first time and the second time you've just whomped them, like they're proud of you. They're like so happy that you've done well. Like there doesn't seem to be a lot of course there are, there is like a super competitive side of this, but generally speaking, a lot of times there's the ego usually is set aside, because people are just generally happy that you are getting it or you're doing so well. Like,
Right, yeah. Like I can recall my first time I played against Sam's Felgors at BAO last year,
oh,
and I lost. And it was a great game. I mean, it was decently close of a game, but then I got to play against him again at LVO, and we were both playing the same teams. He was playing Felgors and I was playing Commandos, and the retribution of being able to win after losing the first time just felt so good. I was like, that was my best win of the whole event, just because like it's that retribution of finally I beat the Felgors.
And honestly, he was a monster that won.
He was
tournament,
great with the
so,
Felgors
I
too.
mean, yeah. So good for you, girl. Like, wow.
It's like, I love Sam. He's, no offense to Baki, but he's my favorite bat.
Mhm.
But
He's a sweetheart.
He really is, yeah, and it was a really fun game, and it was just nice to be able to finally get that win. Like, it's like the vengeance of those damn Felgors.
Absolutely. Felgors are, when you beat them, you just like remember.
Yep.
Because when you lose, you also just remember.
I've only beat the Felgors twice, and it was once against Sam, and then another time I believe it was against Alex Popov.
Oh.
And I was not expecting to win that game. I was like, I don't even know how I pulled this off, but I did it, and I learned how to play against him.
Amazing.
Incredible.
Yeah. So talking about females in 40K, a huge controversy. I mean, I don't think it should be, but controversy has revealed itself with GW, I think, leaking. There's a leak of the new Custodes book, and there's a 1 or 2 page story about a brand new female Custode.
Oh, what are you talking about?
Hmm.
Custodes have always been female.
Mhm. That was GW's response.
I know.
is.
That's so
It is.
funny. Her name's
Mhm.
Mama Kesh. She's a beefy lady. She was not presented more than just the pronouns she. So I think this is really interesting because I'm really excited for it. I'm all for muscle mommies. So, but the thing is that like she wasn't presented like as a woman. She was just a custodian, and she was just
Right.
playing the the blood games. So, you know, it was very interesting because it's like, I don't know, like I'm all for it. So
I honestly am too. I think that there should be more female characters in Warhammer in general.
I think it's interesting because I think people were really afraid of well, I think people were really upset about the retcon aspect of it, because then people started pouring out all the paperwork before saying the sons of the elite were given, you know, and I think that they were just trying to like prove them wrong because they felt a little gaslit. But I think that the comment, the Twitter comment from Games Workshop saying there have always been female Custodes in the 10,000 wasn't them saying that's always how it was. I think that's just saying that now that's how it is. Like, you know,
Right.
we're not gaslighting you. We're just saying that now that's what it's going to be like. But I know that the other argument is that, you know, they're like, oh, the gene seeds, like it's always been like women can't have gene seeds to change them. And I'm like, all right, guys, like nobody knows how Custodes are made. So let's chill out.
Right.
Like, let's be honest here. Like, you got to trust it. But I mean, honestly, I don't think it's a big deal. I think that what their fear is, it's going to be like, we're going to start having women Space Marines. And I think that really freaked a lot of people out. But I have to ask,
And
like,
I don't see why that would be a problem anyways.
I talk about this to Dakotha. I go, I think this is weird. And I don't know if this is just me who thinks this. I think Dakotha's going to like regret asking me to talk about this, but like my thought process is that when you become a Space Marine, you're no longer a man anyway. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
You give up that portion of humanity and you become a soldier. You become a giant monster. You know what I mean? Like, yes, you're called sons and like we've got all that, but I mean, realistically, it's not like you're a regular dude anymore. So I think that you lose your sexuality, you lose everything. You have one goal, and that's just to serve the Emperor's will. You know what I mean? It's usually just to murder things. So
I'm pretty sure it's just the Space Wolves who really retain their genitalia.
It's two. It was the Emperor's children and the Space Wolves.
Naturally, Emperor's children.
Yeah, of course. They were just wiener boys all around. So like, God, probably some of them had titties too, let's be honest. But like, like the truth of the matter is that like, I don't know. I just feel like that's one aspect of them is that you're no longer a man anymore anyway. You've become something more. You've ascended into like a machine essentially. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
I don't know. That's my belief. So I don't see what the big deal is. And honestly, if you were a woman, I'm not saying we should have female Space Marines, but I'm just saying that like, look at these Custodes. I don't think they're just gonna be like giant, like Futurama smoosh smoosh. Like they're going to be so freaking yoked. Like the hormones have to be like, you know, the testosterone to get the upper body mass you would need. Like these aren't going to be like women with
They're
like
not gonna
giant
be dainty little girls.
Yeah,
like
they're not going to be like these big tittied monsters. Like these are going to be some yoked out women. Like they're not going to be women anymore. You know what I mean? They're just going to be like these vessels. So I don't see why it really matters. They're really hyper focusing on stuff that does not really matter. And again, you have to ask yourself, why? Why are you hyper focused on that?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, coming
A
back
lot
to
of
what you guys
sexism.
what you guys said earlier, you know, or maybe what I said earlier. What I've seen lately is that there's more and more and more female players. There's more and more female YouTubers who are pushing 40K.
Right.
You have Rogue Hobbies, who's like exploded ever since she left Games
GW,
Workshop,
yeah.
right? And her channel's absolutely amazing, and she's coming out with a brand new Monument paint range. But most of these YouTubers are mostly focusing on painting rather than some kind of competitive. You know, maybe there's more views in the hobby section than there is in the competitive section, but nonetheless, they, you know, with GW going more mainstream, trying to sell more product, I don't see there being a problem with them, you know, having more female presenting custodies or space marines. I know that people say that it goes really against the Space Marine lore, but why? Why is men the better gender to become Space Marines? It's just weird at this point in time.
Again, I just, in my idea, like, I really just break it down into the idea that, like, do we have female Tyranids? Like, you know, like, I mean, realistically,
I mean, maybe yes.
Maybe like
there's the birth something. I think it's called.
I
that
guess
thing's weird. You know,
I guess, but I mean, I get it comes down to the idea where, like, I think when this was also presented, like when Warhammer first came out, what was it, 40 years ago, we were talking about this, like
in the 80s.
Yeah, and like even video games were not marketed to women. And guess who plays more, like what gender plays more video games?
Women.
It's like 56% women play video games. And you're always going to have like the a-holes where like, oh, you just play Candy Crush on your phone. Is that not a freaking video game? That's still a video game. And like I have played video games since I was like 8 years old. So like I'm going to be like hyped up on this train. But like my mom used to tell me, because I used to play with my brother, and my mom would only buy video games for him. And like when she would come over to my house as an adult and I'd be over there like just on like 11 hours of Skyrim, she'd be like, you know, it never really, you know, I never really thought about buying you video games. It just never came to me. Because it was never marketed to me. You know what I mean? It was never marketed to women. But, and I think that's initially where a lot of this comes from, is that like sci-fi, you know, even like Lord of the Rings, how many women are in Lord of the Rings, guys? Like, you know what I'm saying? But like, it just comes to the idea that like, realistically, I just don't think that is a sexist mindset of when it came out. It was, you know, who was supposed to be into this? Like, and I mean, it just, I don't think you're going to ruin anything, because they're not talking about a female custode talking about her feelings on the day while painting her nails. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's not what she's doing.
We need more badass female characters to play as.
How many dudes out there are playing Sisters of Battles because they're fucking amazing. They're amazing. And also, I just read this. When it comes to like people being like, we'll make other chapters. Like, do you know how many books about Sisters of Battle have come out in the past 2 years? 4.
Right.
That's so many. Like this, it's like people want this. I just think that people like, it's just a weird divide of like who's supporting this and who's not, and the reasons why. GW is never going to be loyal to you. They're never going to be loyal to their own lore.
They're a company.
Yeah, they're a company. So it's just like, I don't know. If you don't want to play a female custode, don't play a female custode. But I'm slapping tits on my Embers Talon right now. Like,
oh yeah, like my daughter's 11 and she wants to learn how to play, but her biggest complaint is, why is there not more female characters to play as? Because she wants to play as a girl.
Yeah.
But like, aside, Sisters of Battle is a little too complicated for her to learn on. So I'm like, she's gonna play Intercession, and I'm gonna have female heads put on top of her, and she's getting them painted as all the like Hello Kitty character like themes.
Amazing.
I'm like, so there. all I can really do because there's not really many female options.
And it's
I
weird
was really hoping we would have like more witches from Drakari or something, but
Yeah,
so
like
far we don't.
But it's also weird. This is also very interesting to me is that where you do see female characters in futuristic games, the fantasy, because we're like hyper focusing on fantasy, happen to be like elves. We got like
Right.
Harlequin. We have like, our banshees. Like it's interesting. It's like, oh, it's so fantasy. It's okay because their civilization's so much more advanced. I'm like, you guys, that's really a disgusting mindset.
Right.
Like as human beings, we're just not there yet because women have titties and we just can't allow them. Like, nah. Like,
Exactly.
but it is interesting. But the only places we really do see women, the sexuality of a character being brought up is like Eldar don't talk about that. Like there's no character that can't be another character because they're a woman,
Right.
but they're so advanced. And it's just, that's kind of a weird thing to think. So, I mean, it's really kind of ingrained into society already. So it's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to paint more boobs. Not gonna lie.
I want more models with boobs.
But it's,
I am selfish. I want more boobs.
Boobs and
I like
bubbly
boobs.
butts. And I don't mean like Space Marine butts, but I need more butts too. Like, I'm like,
Right.
okay. But you know what's my favorite part of any model, man or woman, are their long ponytails. I'm sorry. That's one thing I don't even like about sisters is I hate their dumb bobs. I wish they all had like really pretty ponytails.
Well, one of the big things that I was asking for a really long time was female guardsmen. And I don't know if anyone's noticed, but female guardsmen did not come out until the upgrade sprue for the old Cadians. And then a year or 2 years later, the brand new Cadians came out with female heads. I mean, it's just a direction where I think Games Workshop is going. Like it costs so much.
You can choose when you're building them.
Yeah, it costs so much to make a mold, right? And their main player base was just men. And now that society is growing and going in this direction, it only makes sense that molds are becoming possibly cheaper to make, or maybe it's easier to sculpt things. They don't have to have somebody actually sit there and sculpt something. It makes way more sense to start including female heads, to include maybe some female bodies. Because,
Coda, I'm gonna like just say this though, but like it wasn't me who was playing female characters, it was you. Yeah. So I'm just saying there's men out there who still want to play. Cause I mean, your vet guard, like some of your favorite characters you turned into
are women.
Mm-hmm. You built these amazing, I mean, I'm sure you've talked about your vet guard before, but like, and here's the thing, I think they're really received well. People love them, but like you're a dude who just wanted to like create really cool, badass characters. And when you're naming off these old like 80s, 90s characters, like a handful of them were women. You're like, all right, Sigourney Weaver, get up
Ripley,
there. Yeah. And so, but the thing is that like, there are plenty, I think, of dudes too, who just want really cool. Cause I mean, dudes still play Sisters of Battle, like, and a lot
look
of
at even like video games, like look at how many guys play as female characters.
Yeah. Like Tomb Raider. Hell yeah.
I feel like most of them play as female characters.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the Eldar currently are the only range that have like a great mix.
A mix because they're futuristic and better than humans. I mean, like think about that. Like, but that's just the point I was getting at is like when you like, cause I've been writing a Lower Decks campaign that's coming out. But like it's interesting. Like when you look at species, like really like gender's really not brought up in the future because we're over that. And it's like, why? So we know in our minds, we know that that's an issue we have, you know what I mean? Like, cause in our futuristic, like, fantasies, that's not usually something we ever bring up because we've already like overcome a lot of that, and nobody thinks a woman can't do what a man can do. And like you see it in the Eldar, like they all have their paths that they have to take, and it's never, oh, you're a woman, no, you know what I'm saying? Like it's just interesting because it's like and of course all of these characters are written by us, or they're written by people, but like so we know that that's innately in us, that like that's an issue that we have to overcome now.
Right.
Giacomo, do you want to see female Custodes and Space Marines? We haven't heard from you.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't bother me.
It doesn't bother me either.
Yeah, if it happens, cool.
Yeah, so Nicole, I understand that like if they introduce female Space Marines, that would be fine. Do you
absolutely
want female Space Marines?
I would like the option of them, yeah.
Okay. How about you, Saya?
No, not really. And I know it makes me sound like a sexist hypocrite, but this is the reasoning behind it. Even though, like, I understand that, like, retcon happens, we rewrite lore. I think that the Space Marines have been so widely established that it would really uproot a lot of lore already written. And I think that it's fine with Custodes because Custodes are a little bit more of secret, and I don't think they've been wholly flushed out. I think that I would be fine with it. I'm not gonna be like, oh God, I hate this. But like ultimately, if it was my choice, I probably wouldn't alter Space Marines as a whole. And that's only to protect the lore that's already been established. Because I mean, they have been completely flushed out. But I'm not opposed, lore-wise, to introducing a weird ass like addition. What are baby Space Marines called before they're full Space Marines?
Scouts?
Yeah, like maybe a female scouts team. Like they can't, like, you know what I'm saying? Make it make sense where maybe there's.
I don't know if they want to be like gender, like a female scouts team compared to like a scouts team.
No, but I'm just saying that, like, I mean, if they're introduced, I'm not anti that. Like, I'm no way going to be like, oh, I just be like, it's an interesting choice. But like lore wise, I think it's going to get really messy, and I think it's going to be very upsetting to a lot of people.
That's
and I think,
true.
and I think it's going to divide the community big time into people being like, you're a sexist piece of shit, and people like, but no, the lore, and other people be like, ew, women, you know, like I get it, but like, like I get it, like, but the thing is that ultimately, I think it's going to get really messy, and I think that people are going to have to, like, I don't know, like, I'm not opposed to it. I just don't think it should happen. Like, I think it's going to cause a lot of rifts in the community, but I'm fine with the Custodes because the Custodes do not have a really established, like, thought out lore because they're so secretive, you know?
Right.
With that being said, maybe Grey Knights, that'd be fine. No, I'm just
Wild.
I'm just kidding.
In my opinion, I think that like Space Marines are kind of like beyond gender, you know, especially since a lot of them don't
I
have
think so too.
that part anymore. Like, does it really matter? And in like 40,000 years, are we still having that argument? You know what I mean?
But
Like,
in a way, though, like I will say this, there's something so medieval about the lore of Warhammer.
of course.
Because you know what I'm saying? Like now we've got this really Catholic feeling of religion, even though, you know what I'm saying? So everything that the emperor was really fighting for, we are so backwards in so many ways. So maybe that sexism is an undertone that needs to still exist because lore wise, it does exist.
That's true.
You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying it, but I mean, there is some backwardsness that even though we're 40,000 like years in the future, it's still beyond, like, backwards to us right now in like 2024. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
True.
Yeah. And I think the main thing is that everyone's saying that like, you know, GW went woke, and I definitely don't think that's the case.
I don't think so either. My gosh.
I think that's a little
little
extreme.
That's a little outfit.
What's weird is like how she was introduced was so anti-woke. Like, I don't, you know what I'm saying? Like, she was just a 2-page story in the 10th edition Custodes Codex about her. And like, I read the a couple paragraphs of it. Well, I could find online where she's just sitting up in like the rafters or something, like overlooking her crew preparing for the blood games. And there was no like, being a woman, you know, and I want to fight the patriarch. It was nothing like that. Like, it was just a small little blip of her just being a normal.
The gender wasn't the main part of it.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
It
wasn't a thing.
Yeah, it wasn't a thing. And so I was like, dude, the way she was presented, but it to me was so cool. And I was like, so the fact that people are screaming like about like, you know, being woke, I was like, it's definitely not like how it was presented at all. Like, it was such a really nonchalant, like, this is how it's always been, like her. And the only reason why you knew she was a woman is because they used the pronouns she. Like, that was it. That was it.
I think what's interesting.
Her name's Caladeus Kesh, just letting you know, because that's cool. Her first name's Caladeus. It's very cool.
I think like GW also really tries to stay out of like the political spotlight, you know, which is like also what we try to do. I think it's just like super smart in this day and age when everyone's so politically divided, you know. I think I don't foresee them like hyper going down a particular route, you know. I just don't think that makes business sense either. But I mean, GW is going to do what GW wants to do. Yeah. But I think I really like the new Caladeus. I think it's a really cool flare.
I do
think it's-
too.
Yeah. I've seen a couple cool conversions with people using Eldar heads. I will say the prettiest female heads are from the Eldar range. I think that there's been,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
man, I'm looking at some of these guardsman heads and they have this like, does everyone remember, not Skyrim? What was the one before Skyrim?
Oblivion.
Elder.
Oblivion. Remember
Yeah.
the female heads in Oblivion where they were all just like super ugly. there's no other way to say it.
So you're fine with women as long as they're beautiful.
No, I'm just saying there wasn't a single pretty lady in that game. And it was just like, what is going on?
Yeah.
I don't think it's difficult to
I'm
sculpt
not
the
gonna
woman's
lie.
face digitally.
When I play games and I have to cuss like Baldur's Gate, I made the prettiest freaking girl I can make on Baldur's Gate. Like, this girl is freaking beautiful, beautiful little sorcery elf. Like, I get it.
Yeah, so I think that the Eldar range definitely has the prettiest heads.
The most
They
feminine for
definitely
sure.
do.
Yeah,
Like
it's-
my
it's-
favorite model is actually Lilith from
Oh
Drakari.
yeah. Oh,
Nice.
Oh yeah, I really like. What is her name? The one that starts with the one that you painted really beautifully, Dakota. The sorcerer, the Eldar sorceress. That's supposed to have a relationship with
Yvraine?
Dylan. Yeah, I think she's the most beautiful model. I just think she's such a pretty model.
Yeah, Yvraine is really, really
Yeah.
pretty.
Like, she's just super feminine and she's just super gorgeous. But at the same time, some of those sisters, even though they've got fierce ass faces, like, there's still a beauty in that kind of power. So, like, I mean, I feel like there's, beauty's definitely a spectrum. So I'm not all for it, but it is nice to have a more feminine option for certain models.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. Like, even when I was trying to get my Hand of the Archon done originally, I wanted to make them more feminine,
Yeah.
but it's so hard to sculpt them in a more feminine way.
Well, you could just use Weich's bodies,
That's
female
true.
Weich
Yeah.
bodies. Which
But she shouldn't have to. She should be able to have the
Right.
option. But I think that's funny. I think it would be kind of neat to be able to do options. The thing with Space Marines is I think that they're so freaking generic. Like, you're getting just these little gray body like robots, and I feel like even if they were women, they're not gonna have. Yeah, you're not gonna know. They're not gonna be sculpting boobies onto
if
their
anything, it
armor.
would just be the head.
Yeah, it'd just be a head. So I don't think it's gonna be much of a difference. And then some of them would probably just have shaved heads. They'd be shaved head women, because I'm sorry, women without makeup on probably look a lot like dudes too. So
Right.
I think there's a point where you have really masculine looking men, really feminine looking men, really masculine looking women, really feminine looking women. So I feel like, again, it's just a spectrum. But again, like, if you want the option to have more feminine looking, I don't think it's a huge leap.
Yeah. So I'm still even trying to figure out, like, with my mandrakes, I'm like, I wish I could make them look like women.
Yeah. Ooh,
But I can't
like
figure
that.
out any way to convert them. Like, they remind me of, like, banshees from horror movies.
Mhm.
Oh,
Like, the
yeah.
ghostly women banshees. That's what they remind me of. But I don't know how to make them look more
So-
like women.
in my opinion, I would probably go with like Weich bodies from the Dark Eldar kit, and then I would sculpt maybe cut off the hands of the Drakari and then put those on there, and then use the flames from might use the arms from the actual Mandrake kit,
Hmm.
and then just use the bodies of the Weich kit, because the Weich kit, those are so beautiful.
Yeah.
Some of
They
those
are.
models, and like you look at Lilith, where she came from her pewter days to where she went to fine cast, and then she came out with her plastic version. Her plastic version is beautiful, but she breaks really easily. It's very annoying.
Yeah.
How are we, like, not to go off topic, but we're talking about it. If she does go that route, that's gonna be a really heavy conversion. But were we going to try to take a step back from letting super converted teams compete because they're hard to tell?
I think like, as long as they look the part,
Okay.
right? Like, I think there's like a podcast recently where I said that I probably wouldn't let legionaries play as Night Lords, and I still stick to that, because and then, people were asking me on the Discord the thing that they're basically the same kit. I'm like, well, they're very much not. Chaos Space Marines is a kit. Legionaries is a upgrade sprue. Night Lords is an upgrade sprue, right? Now, let's say you make a bunch of corn dudes, and could you use the actual butcher from that to play as Night Lords, as long as you still had a lightning claw guy, you still had a dude on a dude on a staff. You know what I mean? I think where I see people going with this is using like banner bearers that just go on the backpack and other things, and just saying like, oh, my old Chaos Space Marines, or, oh, I'm just going to play my Legionaries as this. And people are saying that I'm stifling creativity, when I think that that is opposite the case.
I think that you have to be, if you're playing at a competitive level, I think you have to be your opponent has to be able to know what they're looking at, and very clear. Your opponent needs to know, be like, okay, I can see that that's this type of character. I can see that. And I think that's one of the issues, is when people try to play one team for another team. And like, one thing for me with like Legionary, I have to tell Legionary apart by their weapons, because they're all just like scully little dudes. And the only way I really do tell because I don't play Legionary, I play against a Legionary a lot. I don't know what's up at BAO. The only people I played against were Legionary. That was it. Can you imagine like 6 games of Legionary? Oh my gosh. So, but
doing the Emperor's work right there.
Oh my gosh. And I won a lot of those games. I was like, no, but anyway. But the issue is, and then I played against Jimmy Kelly and his Navy Breachers, and he whomped me so hard. Anyway.
As Jimmy Kelly does.
I know. I was like, it's kind of like a badge of honor now to just be whomped by Jimmy Kelly. So, but another good example of this is Felgor. Like the Felgor look exactly the freaking same, no matter what you say. I'm looking at goats, dude. I'm looking at goats, and the only way that you can tell them apart are their weapons. And I mean, like, one of them has an additional
played
arm.
Them like 20 times.
I just put them together, and I'm telling you right now, those little goat arms, holy goodness, like it was just goat arms and legs being glued together. Like I got them, and I'm missing a hand. If anybody has an extra goat hand, I need
power fist hand. Yeah.
I need a power fist goat hand. Like I don't know what happened to it. It's just gone now. But I just feel like, especially for like novice players, or just people who are not super familiar to. But again, it's like not your job to like make sure, but you still have to stay with a consistent time frame. So I'm fine with like the as long as I don't know, if you're building a team specifically for another team and that you're not just doing substitutions, I think it's fine.
So substitutions is like the big no, right? Yeah,
that's the one where I have a lot of issues with.
Yeah, you don't want to use like a team that already exists as another team. So like for Mandrakes, I feel like they have the same problem as Felgor. When you're trying to use them as a conversion, because like you have to make sure they look like the actual models, because you still don't even know what the fuck the actual models look like. They're so difficult to tell apart. They're like the Felgor, which we will probably all know what each one does, after like 3 or 4 months after we've played against them quite a few times. And you're like, okay, the dude with the big sword that's pointing upright is the Dirge Maw, or whatever it's called, right?
Yeah.
Or the dude with the shadow cloak that looks like they're throwing something is the guy who opens shadow portals. So like, I think keeping into the same vibe and the same feel as the team is probably like the safest route to go. I just feel bad for like people that, for instance, a Bats player brought Howling Banshees and would use Howling Banshees as Harlequins. And that was fine until Blades of Cain came out, and now Howling Banshees exist, right? And now you're like, well, you can't really use those as what's it called, as Harlequins anymore. So, G, what is your thoughts? I know that you and me talk about this quite regularly.
I'm generally in favor, if you're gonna get a conversion, get it as close as you can. Try to have something similar. Like if it's a guardsman. There's a general accepted size for a human body. Humans aren't Space Marines, as an example. Humans aren't elves. There's a very specific kind of look, and then you sort of go from there, right?
True.
And every TO is going to be different. So.
Sure. This is just how I feel about it. And but then again, at the end of the day, the way you hobby doesn't affect the way I will play the game.
Mhm.
So, that's cool with me.
Oh, sorry. I was dancing. So I think that's some important things to keep in mind when we're obviously doing
I know, but
conversions. and stuff.
Giacomo does have a point. Like, I don't feel like we can really put rules on other people doing what they want and enjoying with their game. It's just when it comes to a competitive level, we do have to be fair to everybody.
Right.
Yeah, because I mean, like, you don't ever want to like take away someone's creativity, but if it's to the point where like a model's too small, like and they are getting an advantage because they're too small because of their conversion, you're like, okay, like that could also like competitively be an issue. So I mean,
Yeah, going back to like Pacific Skirmish logic, we have to do what's right rather than what our feelings are or what the
Yeah.
opponent's feelings are,
Exactly.
or your player's feelings are.
but
right?
like ultimately, I would never want to be like, no, you can't create the most beautiful, creative like models ever, like because that's really a big part of the hobby that I enjoy. So
Mhm.
Yeah.
Conversions is my favorite thing. If you guys can see the Vet Guard team I'm working on for Dallas, you would see, like every single model is kit bashed from multiple kits and multiple things are converted. So, and like sculpted on there. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting. But I feel like we've mostly come to the end of this. I do want to say, we did release Hobby Highlander this past week. Nicole, did you watch it?
I did watch it. It was really good. I'm looking forward to the next episode.
It gets better as it goes on.
Yeah, the first one, I feel like the first one was great, but I feel it was like rough because we're all trying to figure out our timing and like what we want to do. And for me, the rules of how this was gonna go about. So
Right.
But my favorite part's Rob. I'm so sorry, guys, but Rob is so funny. Like that is so funny to me.
He's also my favorite part.
Yeah, that was probably my favorite part too.
I still can't believe he agreed to do it. Like that's what I'm like. Oh my god,
Rob is the Hobby Highlander.
he is.
Absolutely.
And I was like, did he realize he was gonna be the face of our entire show?
Yeah. G, what was your favorite part filming it?
The Highlander part. that was. I remember because I was talking to Dakotha about it. Like, we need to have, since the name is Highlander, like we need to have something that's just that. And then this is how that part was born.
Mm-hmm.
And
Wow.
then we asked Rob. He had all the garb and stuff, and he had weapons. And so we got him one Sunday to go filming up in the mountains, and there we go. The rest is history.
It was like my calling.
It was great.
And he was like before he was that was the week we did the podcast with him, and right before that he was just dressed in like regular athleisure wear, and then he comes back from the bathroom and he's wearing like everything he has on with the kilt and everything, which is pretty funny.
Yeah, the next event we go to, G, we both should wear kilts just to promote Hobby
As
Highlander.
fake Scotsman.
Good.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It would be fun. Is there anything that you guys want to give shout outs for?
Not really. Shout out to you guys for, everything you guys do.
See, isn't
You guys
Nicole like the
definitely-
nicest person ever? She really is.
I don't think I've ever met a single person that has had ever one negative thing to say about Nicole.
I
Nicole
know.
is
That makes
Very-
me very happy.
very special.
She's too
person.
nice.
And if they
I don't know how to be mean.
That's
know.
good. That's good.
A very special person in this space.
I
So
know, I
Nicole,
mean-
we appreciate you more than you would ever know.
Thank
Yes.
you. I'm glad. I'm glad that we have the community that we do and that everybody is so welcoming. And, I'm happy to Cal Team for taking me on. It's great to feel like part of a team and a community
No, that's
within Cal
amazing.
Team.
And this is just like kind of a shout out to all of our male listeners. Let your try to like guilt trip your women folk into playing. Like how Nicole and I got tricked into it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just buy them their first box set and be like, this was so expensive, but this is all you need.
Yeah.
Then sign them up for a tournament and then
Don't
maybe
do
they'll
that,
like
dude.
it.
That the anxiety that gave me. I was so upset too. I was even like the day before. I was like, ugh. Oh, but
I'm not
You
gonna
can-
lie, that's her exact noise that she would make the whole
yeah,
time.
it is. It is.
She complained the whole time, and I knew it'd be good for her. And then we played, and she enjoyed herself, and I was right.
Oh, yeah. it was
Take
great.
that, babe.
Yeah. Remember who was the guy who won our LVO, the painting contest, LVO last year? This year?
Justin.
Justin. So Justin beat me so bad at my first game of LVO. He was my third person I played, and he beat me so. I think he tabled me by like turn 2. Like he tabled me, and like I tried not like I didn't cry, but my eyes were like watering because I was like, oh. And then Dakotha played him next. I was like, avenge me.
Right.
And then
I
like
tell Austin the same
I
thing.
know, just like avenge me, please. And like I think Dakotha, he like whooped you too, but like I think you won by 1 point. But it was a really hard. He's like a 1 by 1 point. I was like, I don't care.
The win's a win.
But like he's
Justin's a great guy. I
think
like
he's-
that he didn't take it easy because you're a woman.
I know he whomped
Yeah.
me so bad. Like it was like being tabled, and he was like, "Oh, I knew I was gonna beat you just because like my team goes well into your team." But like I was like, okay. But like I've never to this day I have never been beaten as badly as I have been by Justin. But I just wanted to bring up like he's probably
That's how it feels playing against Dakotha too.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh my god. I don't think I have as hard a time because Dakota's the person I play against the most. So I know
Right,
a lot
yeah.
of his tricks and stuff like that. And like I mean he still beats me, but like I kind of know his mindset. So
Yeah.
At least you know, Nicole, the day you beat me will be because you beat the shit out of me.
Exactly.
You know that?
You never take it easy on me, and I definitely always appreciate that.
yeah.
Mhm.
Then when I do beat you, it will definitely be earned.
All the sweeter. I'm glad because you know
Hey,
you have it
you
in
should
you. You're
play
gonna
him
beat
now,
me.
Nicole, because the
What?
vet guard have been nerfed so bad. Do it now.
Right
Do it
now, I'll play against your
Do
vet
it
guard. I
now.
mean, maybe not with my nerfed void dancers, but like,
Maybe
We'll bring
your
the
nerf
commandos in and
commandos.
just beat him. Oh my gosh.
yeah.
I want this to happen so bad. He
Yeah,
won't
I'm
let those. He won't
I
let
am
those
I am
vet guards in.
excited and happy for the day you beat me. I'm gonna give you the biggest hug and give you the biggest high five.
Nice.
It's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be
It
amazing.
is. It'll happen at some
will.
point.
I believe
It
in that.
will.
Yeah. I just have to play at more tournaments.
All right. That's always the problem. You're always running all the tournaments, so I don't
Yeah.
get to play against you often.
Yeah. G, is there anything you wanna give a shout out to, brother?
Yeah, if you want to, talk with us more, you can join the Discord. It's in the links in the show notes. You can also just look up the Squad Games Discord. We talk about other things there. We talk about all the other projects we're working on. The general community has questions. We like to answer them when we can. You can find me on Wargaming Studios on Instagram. I'm painting stuff. And if you want, you can join our Patreon. That really helps us in a more personal way. We appreciate it. But if you can't do any of that stuff, even just listening is more than enough. And if you want to leave a rating, feel free to do so. We always appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
How about you, Dakotha?
I would like to shout out Hobby Highlander, Saya, and Alex as well. You guys both help with that quite amazingly. And we're filming 4 more episodes tomorrow. So we are all in gear trying to get these out every week. So for the foreseeable future until we take like a small break for season 2. So we definitely want to keep making these, and so everyone can find out what the best paint is, so that you don't have to waste money on hobby paint, and also make good entertainment. So thank you, Giacomo, for doing all your editing. It's a big help for the channel. So thank you as always, brother.
Thanks, man.
Saya, do you have anything?
Oh, I mean, if you guys want to follow me on YouTube or my Instagram, it's Tabletop Mayhem on both. Yeah, I just also definitely check out Hobby Highlander. It's a lot of fun.
Are you on
Make sure you-
TikTok?
Make sure
I
you
am
watch our
on
TikToks.
TikTok, but I think that TikTok's gonna die soon. So I mean, definitely. If you
I
want
hope
to,
not.
I know I've it would be upsetting to me but ultimately, following me on one of the platforms is great. Following me on all 3 is great. I'm Tabletop Mayhem across the board, so you'll be able to find me on pretty much anything.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Well, cool beans. Well, that's another Squad Games in the bag. That's episode 94. We're getting close to 100.
Very close.
We're gonna have to do
Awesome.
something exciting. I have no idea, but we'll do something. And that's in 6 weeks?
Most
that in the-
likely. Most likely.
Is that in
yeah.
the middle of June or something, or end of March?
March,
March.
May?
You're going backwards.
brah.
May?
Yeah,
close
close to
to
like the beginning, the end of May, right at the beginning of June.
Yeah, my list Dexia is coming in. All right. Well, until next time, everyone, thank you for listening as always. And yeah, we'll catch you on the next one.
See ya.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Bye.
Bye.
The Squad Games podcast is a production of Squad Games Entertainment. For more information on Squad Games, please visit our website at lestersworkshop.com/squad-games.